Well, guess which movie just got a trailer? There's absolutely no way this is in any way good. So let's watch it. This is 3 minutes long. Let's dull our expectations here because this is a retelling of the comic book, and based on what people are saying in my previous video about the comic book, some people are saying it's got nothing to do with the comic book, and then there are other people being like, it's exactly the same as the comic book, read it, it's all in there. So there must be multiple different comic books of multiple different styles that all of you have read individually. Okay. All right. Okay. We might be onto something here. I don't know about you guys, but that was actually kind of sick. The action was cool. Him being shot in the way it, like, obviously still affects him, but he can't die from it. It's cool. It's still very much about a man avenging the death of him and his girlfriend. It's about love still very much. The narrative still very much seems to be the same. A lot of the scenes are actually quite similar as well, especially this one with the gun and the... If you've seen the original Crow, you'll recognize that scene. It's almost one-to-one from that movie. Now, what I wanted to do was have a quick look at the imagery of the Crow from the comic books, because some people are saying, read the comic books, this look is far more similar to the comic book look, and then there are some people saying, I've read the comic books, this new Bill Skarsgård looks nothing like the comic book Crow. So let's actually have a look and see where you guys are getting your references from, because I feel like there's a bunch of different art styles that you've probably read. And then I will talk more about this trailer because it needs to be spoken about. So here we have Eric Draven, most likely an image from the comic book, and it most definitely does look way closer to the 90s version. Wouldn't say that's necessarily a mullet, it's more just like 80s rocker hair. Again, here, it's not so much a mullet as it is more just 80s rocker hair, which is a little bit longer in the back, but it's not necessarily what's going on in this movie. Yeah, I mean, it was closer to the 94 version here. It seems whenever it came to creating and I think even just illustrating the Crow in these very sketchy style comic books, the hairstyle I think changed in minor ways between each illustration. It was more the essence of the Crow, I think, is more important. Like whenever you see the Crow drawn, whenever you see Eric, he needs to have the recognizable attributes, and it's very much so, you know, the jacket, the darkness, the makeup, and, you know, the crazy shaggy hair, which they've definitely toned down in the new movie. I get that it's being made for modern audiences. It seems to change between illustrations. I don't know if they had different artists per comic book. It's very likely they did. So it's likely that each artist had their own version of what the hair should be. But whenever you see the Crow, you recognize the Crow. Now, I did see someone mention that they hope the soundtrack is going to be good. And to that I say, it's not. It's not gonna be. What do you want, Bauhaus to suddenly start making decent music for these movies for the first time in decades? It's not gonna happen. And as we all know, rock and roll is dead, so that's probably not gonna feature in this either. The soundtrack and the score probably isn't going to be great. I do kind of want to have a look and see who is responsible for the music in this. Maybe Wikipedia can give us more of an insight, because most movie reviewers downplay this aspect, or at least don't appreciate this aspect as much as I would. So the music is by someone called Volker Bertelmann. So let's have a look at soundtrack albums, and let's see if we can find anything recognizable that we can base this on. Now, I'm not familiar with any of these movies, which he is responsible for providing the soundtrack, but it looks like he has worked on an extensive amount of movies since 2015, so he's been at this for a little while, not as long as I'd like, but again, this movie is even based on the guy they've got to do the score. This movie is based on trying to keep the budget as low as possible, and for me personally, I kind of like that. I like the idea of keeping movies low budget and focusing more on the performance and the writing and the pacing to carry the movie. So if you're familiar with any of these movies that Verkel has worked on, then maybe you might be excited now or less excited, so we'll find out. We'll see what happens. So we have this scene here. Now, is this a penitentiary to you? Perhaps maybe this could be psychiatric ward, psychiatric hospital. Maybe we do have an origin story for the love that develops between Eric and Shelly. Definitely looks like that by the pacing of the trailer, or at least the content of the trailer. So it looks like they do meet each other in whatever this is. It could be psychiatric, it could be some sort of rehab facility, something like that. Probably rehab, right? Now, for those of you who are getting into this purely based on the 1994 movie featuring Brandon Lee, you will know that there is absolutely almost zero backstory to Eric and Shelly's relationship, other than very quick, high contrast flashbacks to their relationship literally moments before disaster. And I feel like that's probably the only weak point of the original 90s movie, is that I think we needed to see and feel more of the pain that Eric Draven was feeling that drove him to do the things that he did. So I think if there is a portion of this movie that does focus on the development of the initial love story, I think that's a good thing. And it definitely looks like that's included in this movie. And for one, I'm excited to see that. As someone who's not read the comic books where this love story most likely begins, this is going to be a good visual introduction into their relationship. So this, I think, is a good thing. Now let's have a look at these scenes here.
You feel like my person.
You feel like my person.
What's the worst thing you've ever done?
I love that. Okay, it's not purely sexual. Whenever it's two people who meet and they're impassioned with each other and they truly feel like they have found their person, to use the terminology that's in this trailer, which is honestly adorable. This is, to me at least, a realistic depiction of a loving young couple. Now, you can complain about the very modern depictions of these characters, which, you know, they are based more for, you know, Zoomers. And if they have decided to make these two characters, now I'm not familiar with the comic books, I am very familiar with the original 94 movie, but if they have decided to make these characters ex-addicts or ex-criminals, it makes sense how he would, number one, have the tattoos of one, to be honest. He doesn't have the physique of one. Now, let's talk about Bill Skarsgård's fitness here, because for those of you who are not particularly knowledgeable about fitness and how muscle growth works, this is not physically possible for most people, especially as fast as Bill did it, and especially for someone who has Bill's build. This is the result of some grade A pharmaceuticals, and I am next in line, baby. I'm this close. This close, man. I'm 32. Going to the gym is going to be like swimming against the current any year now. I'm gonna need some help at some point. Now, based on this scene here, it looks like they've nailed the... Yeah, look at this. It looks like they've nailed the apartment. For those of you who've seen the 94 movie, this is almost exactly what the apartment looks like, or at least the vibe of the apartment. It's just a big, huge studio apartment with just stuff everywhere, right? It feels rock and roll. Let's have a look at the perpetrators here. And for those of you who have watched the original 94 movie, the horrible fate of Shelly is quite disturbing. And as we can see from this movie, this is a very different crime that happens, okay? Far less disturbing. Honestly, I think the extremely devastating and disturbing nature of the original event that happens in the 94 movie definitely lends itself more emotionally to the resulting revenge that Eric Draven ultimately feels. This looks more like it's some sort of organized crime situation, maybe drug related. Maybe that's how it ties in. Maybe they were ex-drug dealers and they're trying to get away from this high society of drug dealers, this big drug ring, and they're being killed for it, for getting out. Maybe. Now, the most we can do is speculate about the plot of this particular movie, because so far on the Wikipedia there's nothing, just production, cast, the fact that it was shot outside of the US, the fact that it has such a ragtag cast, to me gives this movie a sense of it needs our support if it's going to do any decent numbers here. This isn't woke Hollywood trying to dig their fingers into the brain of yet another fantastic IP that did not need to be resurrected. in order to be paraded around as a hollow shell of what it used to be in order to peddle a deeply flawed message. That does not look like what's happening here. This actually looks like it could be someone's impassioned vision for a new Crow movie. I hope I'm right. All we have is a 3-minute trailer. I will be watching this whenever it releases in June. I believe it's June. This could be the underdog goth movie of 2024 that we can use to help extend the life expectancy of the goth subculture, despite the self-destruction it keeps trying to do. This could be this generation's Queen of the Damned. It could be. This could be the new Queen of the Damned. This could be the new movie that helps inspire a new generation of kids to be disappointed by Bauhaus. Because let's face it, the original music that started this is not very good. Have you heard Joy Division? Yeah, so the killing by the plastic bags here. That's good freeze frame there. This, compared to the original movie, this is where I'm immediately disappointed. This is just so bleh. It's so I kind of don't want to offend the audience by non-consensually R-wording his girlfriend to incite a sense of vengeance. So let's just put a plastic bag over their heads. Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever find yourself in a situation where a murderer thinks that putting a plastic bag over your head is an effective way to kill someone, if you ever find yourself being killed by essentially an idiot, do one of these. Super easy. And then you're safe. This, I think, is not, to me, enough motivation for Eric Draven to come back from the dead and do all the things. Yes, they both died and it's horrible, but the events that transpire in the original Crow movie are so much more scarring emotionally, right? It's disgusting what happens in the original movie. But then I feel like it had to be. How could someone not come back from the dead to avenge this shit? So a nice cute little sleepy bye-byes while they stare at each other is not quite as bad when if you consider what happened in the 94 movie. I feel like this could have been way worse. Maybe they wanted to keep a certain rating for the movie. Maybe they didn't want to go into an 18 certification or whatever it's going to be in the US. R-rated, maybe? Eric Draven being thrown out of their circular window and face planting the sidewalk below, and then her having her fate that follows probably a few hours later was disgusting and nasty and enough to put the audience in an uncomfortable emotional state that really makes you put your fist in the air every time Eric gets one of these assholes. Like, yes! Now, it looks like here in this part of the trailer, we do actually have what seems to be the afterlife, or at least a version of it, some sort of limbo that Eric is caught in. And we do have yet more backstory and more context to how Eric Draven actually finds his way back to the land of the living to exact his revenge, which again, the original movie is missing. There's no backstory to their relationship other than flashbacks, and Eric Draven just resurrects with a crow. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no other reason or explanation, and if it is in there, it's mentioned in passing. It's not part of the primary plot, and I feel like that's a little bit disappointing. This, however, looks like it does go into that aspect of this whole plot way more, which I want to see more of this. I think a movie that focuses, or at least includes, more of the original plot rather than altering it, I think is a good thing, because it looks like they're not altering anything. It looks like they're adding more to it. Now, it does have a Gen Z zoomer paint job, and that can be a little bit disappointing, but I, for one, kind of like the way Bill Skarsgård looks. I think it looks dope. But that's just a matter of opinion, and actually has no relevance at all to the performance of the actors, the pacing of the movie, the quality of the writing, the quality of the soundtrack and the score. So let's withhold disdain for the imagery just for now. Yeah, here, it looks like this is Limbo, or the afterlife, right? This seems to be some sort of context as to how and why he comes back in order to get revenge, which I think is good. That's good that it's in here. Now let's get to the part that we all kind of want to see here, which is the coolest part, arguably, of the original movie, which is Eric Draven's, or at least the Crow's depiction of Eric Draven's immortality, which I think is far more visceral than any other portrayal of immortality. He definitely takes bullets, and he takes damage, and he feels it, you know, like like a human would. It's just the difference is it doesn't kill him. And I like that, right? I like this very gritty, raw sense of like shredded flesh and like taking damage and making the bad guy feel, haha, I win. You've been killed, my guy. Wait a second. Why is he still walking towards me? So it looks like there, as he was shot and killed by this bad guy, he went back to the underworld only to be sent back again, which I think is very interesting. I think that's quite cool. It's not just a one set. It's not just a single shot that we never get to see again. It looks like it's prevalent through the entire movie, which could be very cool. And I like this, how it keeps cutting back to Shelley as if maybe he's getting closer to her the more revenge he gets. I still don't like his hairline. The hairline, I think, is bothering all of us. I think the hairline's the problem. I don't think it's necessarily the hair, it's more the hairline. But you can't really do much about that. You know, like a Deadpool 2 situation. If anyone who's seen Deadpool 2 knows that that is quite emotionally engaging. Seeing Deadpool or Wade Wilson seeing his departed girlfriend every single time he nearly dies before he gets resurrected again. Now, if they took that concept from Deadpool 2 and applied it to this movie, that'd be quite cool. Because Shelley is only ever seen in flashbacks. We don't see her soul. We don't see her in the afterlife. And I feel like in this, Shelley's going to be far more of a reoccurring motivation for Eric Draven, which, again, cool. Yeah, okay, so that's cool. He's got the masculinity about it, which I love that. It looks like they took time to focus on depicting Eric Draven's quite unique sense of immortality, which is cool. Now, let's have a look at this car here. This is quite a unique car, and I feel like it looks pretty familiar. I don't want to say it was in the original movie because the original movie is very, very dark, but that's quite a unique looking car. And if you look in the background, none of the other cars seem to match the aesthetic of this one.
We have a problem. He came for us.
This guy. Love this guy. I think he's a great actor. He plays a great bad guy. I believe he was in 30 Days of Night, and I loved him in that movie. And here we have the makeup scene. We have a sword now, which I think is really cool. This part, that whole scene of him walking up the stairs and being shot and it visibly affecting him. See, usually whenever you see immortality or invulnerability in movies, they get shot, bullets either go straight through them and there's no reaction to the force of a bullet, or the bullets just bounce off. The actor doesn't need to portray being shot, but Bill does. He's being, dragged and moved and hit in all sorts of different directions. You can feel the impact of the bullet. You can see it's affecting his body, but it's not killing him, which I think is super awesome.
It's not anger. It's love.
It's not anger, it's love. And I think that, for me, is probably one of the coolest or one of the best aspects of the story so far. Because it's not anger or revenge, it's love that's driving him to do this. Which I think is great. I think that's a very unique take on the entire situation here. The jacket looks nice. It looks like there's lots of really good imagery in it. It looks like they focused on the emotions. That's cool. Yeah, I'm very impressed with this. I'm very impressed with this. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, but Jake, there's another really large plot line that's in the original movie that is not in this at all. And that is the role of sweet little Sarah and her drug addict mother. Now, I loved the storyline of Sarah's mother and the way Eric Draven pulls a Jesus with her and saves her, which is probably one of my favorite scenes in the original movie. Like, a mother is God in the eyes of a child. That line is chilling. That line is amazing. Him forcing the morphine out of her veins in the mirror as like some sort of deity. Super powerful, so cool. If we're robbed of that scene, or at least the power of that scene in this movie, I will be a little bit disappointed. Now, there is a character in this called Zadie. Now, I don't know if Zadie is probably going to be sort of a replacement for the Sarah character. For those of you who don't know, Sarah was a young girl whose mother was a drug dealer who was in with all of the bad guys. She was neglected, and she was just left to wander the streets with a skateboard, basically homeless, going from place to place. And Eric and Shelley looked after her, and she found a home and parents with Eric and Shelley. So whenever they died, she was robbed of that sort of security. And then when Eric came back, you know, she got to see Eric again, and there was an emotional moment there, right? Like the whole "it can't rain all the time," and she's like, "Oh my God, Eric!" Right? That was great. Even just goosebumps thinking about it. So I think if we're lacking that storyline, I think I might be a little bit disappointed. It does look like the storyline is already pretty busy. There's a lot going on in this, but I definitely like the idea of this version of Eric Draven in 2024 and Shelley getting clean, finding each other, and then also finding some sort of disadvantaged teenage girl that they sort of adopt, and they're helping her find her way, and she's also robbed of that. And that's what the whole tragedy was of the first movie, because like, if you don't think what happened to Shelley was bad enough in the 94 movie, because it's horrific, but this poor girl Sarah is also robbed of the only stability she had in her life, and we do get to see how much worse her life is now that Eric and Shelley are gone in the 94 movie. But I get with trailers, what they're trying to do is they're trying to hit the most reactive audience first, and to do that, you need to show the primary storyline and then all of the key moments with like the action and the blood and the killing and all the cool stuff. There is a character called Zadie in this. She doesn't appear to be in this trailer, so maybe they are going to do that storyline again. It's just gonna be slightly different. Anyway, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know what the public opinion of this movie is. It's probably not good, but I've never been one for conforming. And if everybody else is disgusted by this movie, then allow me to be the first reviewer of this trailer. Maybe. I'm making an assumption here. I've not seen any other people react to this trailer. Allow me to be the first one to offer some positive perspective on what could quite possibly be this generation's Queen of the Damned. Because it might be, man. 1994 was Goth Kids' movie of the 90s. They're like the Gen X Goths. That was their movie. Queen of the Damned in like what, 2000? 2001? That was like for us kids, the millennials. And we haven't really had anything since. Anyway, I've been Jake Monroe. Let me know what you want to see more of in the future, because I'm honestly quite confused as to why you guys are here. Is it movies? Is it movies? Because I could do movie reviews. I'll figure it out. Like and subscribe. I don't have to tell you to do that. You guys are autonomous. You do that on your own based on how you perceived the video. And me, I guess. I will catch you later. Bye.